Well, welcome everybody to the online networking webinar brought to you by Agriculture Victoria. Thanks very much for joining us. On behalf of Becky Barker, Nikki Marks and Rachel Jacobson, we will all be presenting to you today on this important topic. COVID obviously has made it important, but it already was, and it was already a very mature tool, I guess, for many people. But we'll explain that as we go. To start the webinar off, just remind you that you can use the chat box to talk to us. We'll be monitoring that as we go, and also the Q&A icon. So if you click on the Q&A, you'll be able to ask us questions and we'll be able to respond to you as the webinar goes. And we really welcome that as we go through the webinar today. So to perhaps give a bit of context on this online networking, my name's Gavin Beaver. I work with a project called Extension Oz, and we've been, I guess, developing an online networking communities of practice approach since 2012. And it's probably why I got involved in the digital literacy series being coordinated by Rachel. And you'll hear more from Rachel about that as we go. We're here at a property just south of Bendigo, about 13 kilometres south of Bendigo in central Victoria. And we've got a mobile phone tower up there in the right-hand side, top right-hand corner of the image, which is about 6 k's away. And that's giving us NBN wireless, which we now all are very dependent upon. And we run, a range of applications because we have got that mobile tower. And in fact, we've got our son on the right is doing his year 12 and he's upstairs now doing his year 12 online. 22-year-old who was at college in America in his third year and is now back in Australia doing that online at the moment. And Heather and I are in business and we'll explain a bit more about that as we go. So like most families, totally dependent on online, and COVID's made us more so, and very dependent upon online networking. But more about that to come. So Extension Oz, just a little bit of background on that. These three organisations have come together and supported this approach. It was developed in the United States starting in about 2002, but it was really looking at harnessing the internet. And initially it was about information provision, like coordinating the information to the agricultural sector and rural and regional communities through in the United States, their extension and research is delivered through their land grant universities, of which there are 75. And so it's an opportunity for them to coordinate things and extend via online networks. We tested the approach in Australia through initially 2 communities of practice, and now, as of right now, there are 16 in these different subject areas. So just reading a couple of those from irrigating agriculture through to the apple and pear integrated pest and disease management. Becky's here from the Victorian Rural Women's Network, and Nikki will be speaking about her experience with the Food Innovation Network, just to name a couple. But more about that later also. So the outcomes of today, what we really want to share with you and why it's really a very timely topic is that the networks are just so critical now. So we're hoping we can share with you our understanding of online networking and the role that it can play with a whole range of functions, whether it be on individual farms, whether it be within organisations and businesses, or whether it be extending and networking out into a much broader community. There's a role in all of those places. To do so, we'll talk about digital and network literacy, online tools, social media networking, how you may develop your own strategy, and this concept of going viral. And hopefully from that, we'll give you some key next steps that you could use to either improve your networking or initiate online networks. So just a bit of context and background for us all. Let's just have a quick poll. So just to give us an idea on where you are from and what your interests are and your background. So if you could just fill out the poll for us, then the presenters and myself will be able to think about things as we present and deliver to you today. So if you start that poll and answer those quick questions, that would be great. whilst you're doing that, in the interest of time, we'll keep the poll open for a minute or so, but I'll also explain some further background for you all. So let's start off with reflecting on why do we go online? So we run an agricultural consulting business that we started in '97, and online activity, I guess, has become more and more important and is now actually essential and critical to us. And there's a key reason for that. So this loony cartoon was pretty controversial when it was put out. But that's probably the reality, is that for many of us, we're pretty absorbed with online medium. And so essentially we're going to where the people are. It's not like we're trying to create a community. We're actually reaching out to a medium where people are already in that space. So we're just doing it better. These are the current figures, so just the broad Australian population, but so there's 86% of internet users on social networking apps and so forth. You can read those. Messaging apps, 81%. There's some surprises there, like health and fitness apps, for instance, are popular, but they're used by 26% of people. And dating and friendship apps, although apparently they're the most revenue-raising apps in Australia, but they're used by 8.5% of the population. And the internet penetration at the moment, as of January this year, was 22.31 million people in Australia with internet connectivity, so about 87% of our total population. And I know there's challenges for us all in rural and regional area, and I'm crossing my fingers that today our internet stays stable, which apparently so far it is. But the reality is that internet is improving, and we actually ran a webinar for those that missed it on connectivity, and there's a recording on that, but there's all sorts of opportunities to improve our connectivity. We won't go into that in detail today, but that is part about online networking, is enabling our target audience where and if we have to. But why are the networks so critical? Let's just quickly reflect on that. Our experience when we were working with the American, Dan Cotton was the founder of the Extension Approach, so the online communities of practice in the United States. And back in 2002, it's really all about getting information and coordinating that. So each of those 75 universities with their extension programs could coordinate information. But they quickly understood, and it came about, that it wasn't just information, it was really about the relationships with the developers and providers of the research and information, but also the relationships with the end users and the two-way street. And hence they developed communities of practice, which are online networks where experts in particular subject matter, in our case, it might be someone in automatic milking, and Nico Lyons kindly presented for us at our last webinar. So that's experts in online milking, automatic milking, reaching out online to people who are interested in that subject matter. That's a community of practice. So if you're in the business of transferring information, knowledge or skills, or collaborating or communicating around key subject areas, whether you're selling products or services, or even if you're running a farm business where there are multiple people involved, then it's the relationships that are critical and there. And because relationships are critical, then the online networks can build and they can maintain those important relationships. So that's the key for us all, that the online networks are an opportunity to build or maintain important relationships. And even on farm, if you have multiple people, then you can use the online networking approach. As things get bigger or more complex, then it becomes virtually vital these days. So let's just have a quick look at the poll. I'll just share these results for you. So we've got people from, looks like a couple from interstate join us, so thank you. Welcome somebody from internationally. So welcome to those people that are outside Victoria. And then looks like, yeah, we've got a good scattering across. We've got people with expertise from, so probably nearly everyone's in this space doing some form of online networking. And there's a number of you that are experts in it, so or have been using it a lot, obviously. So hopefully there's something in this webinar for you all as we go through and share these points. This question, we had a number of people that could, obviously you could answer different roles, but it's good to see that people from a farming background are here. And then we've got a range of people from different service sectors and different industries. So that gives Becky, Nikki and Rachel and I some good context. So thanks very much. So if we're talking about building and maintaining important relationships, let's just reflect on that. So this image is some wing walkers and pilots from the flying circus. So if I said to you all, just in the chat, if you're thinking about relationships in your profession, what you do, what are the keys to it? So just in the chat, pop a couple of words. So what are the keys to the relationships in your business, what you do? So Louise, thank you. Good communication. Yes, critical. Two-way conversions, win-win. Yes, Nico. Trust, Helen, thank you. Talking, thanks, Jane. So yeah, talking and communicating, accuracy of information. So credibility, the respect that comes through that. Trust and talking to understand. Thanks, Sandra. Listening, thanks, Jane. So when we're thinking about online networking and making the most of it, we need to think about those keys that are successful for relationships, because the networks are about or based on the relationships. And in the extension of the information, if that's what we're in the business of, or selling a product or giving a service, it is that credibility factor. So we reflect on the trust components, I would agree. It requires respect, particularly respect of the people that you want involved in your network. You have to listen to them, not just, we can often be, as we establish something, we can be so keen on transferring our information or getting across what we want to say that we don't take the time to listen to who we're working with and what their needs are. Our reputation is involved, so we're leveraging that, enhancing it, or, you know, in some cases putting it at risk. And that key one that we've all identified, communication. So I won't be wing walking anytime soon. It won't be on my bucket list, but that must be an amazing experience of trust and communication that it takes for the, you know, the flying circus professionals to deliver what they deliver. And so as things become more critical, so things are, you know, the outcomes or the risks are greater, then it's the respect, reputation, communication, trust becomes more and more important. So just reflect on that as you work with your online networks. So just in summary, why is it important? You're going to where the people are. You can build and or maintain important relationships and focus on the relationship, not just on what you're extending, what you're trying to achieve. And it can be efficient and effective. It can enhance and leverage you and your organisation's reputation. So you can spread your influence further. And this is a key point that we all probably need to reflect upon. If we do it well, it is a competitive advantage, because it's simple, but it can be complex. And focusing on your network's needs and continuously adapting to it is something that isn't always done well. Often people who are networking are focusing on getting out what they're trying to achieve, whether it be sell a product, sell a service, get some information out, extend some research, and they're not listening effectively to the end user. That's the competitive advantage. So what does it require? Obviously relationship building skills, you know, going from your place in a community of of influence, whatever network you or community you're operating in, geographically, industry, etc. So it's relationship building skills to form that network, and it relies on connectivity, as I mentioned before. But if connectivity is a given, then this concept of digital literacy, which is what we're going to share some more with you today, which essentially is an emerging field, and it's really the understanding of the tools and the processes that it makes, that means networking online can be truly effective. So let's talk about some success factors before we actually talk to you about a strategy you can use to make online networks effective. So number one, be outcome focused. So be very clear on what you want to do with your online networking. Again, whether it's on your farm, in your organisation, in your community, whatever it might be. So your outcomes may change, but just do that in a focused fashion. So you monitor and adjust as needed. And this is probably a good illustration. If you're aiming at that target and you miss, then you adjust. You look at your result and you adjust and you try again. That's one area in online networking that isn't, when we talk about being a competitive advantage, people don't always monitor well what they're achieving in their online strategies or in their online networking. So in that context of being outcome focused, if we're talking about farmer networks, farmers enjoy socialising. We're a little bit isolated geographically, exchanging information, learning, connecting with peers on a regular ongoing basis. So that's the need, potentially. It's a broad need, and you can refine that down, but it's essentially what many farmer networks are looking for. In professional networks, agricultural professional networks, we might be wanting to source peers, information, knowledge, and develop skills, but essentially it's about us trying to carry out our roles, making us deliver what we're trying to do easier and more effectively. And then you can have targeted networks. So that might be, and that's essentially what we work with in Extension Oz. We're building communities of practice about subject matter areas, whether it be soil moisture monitoring as an example. And we're targeting people that have an interest in soil moisture monitoring, farmers who are growing pastures, crops, working in horticulture, but they've got that shared interest and need and concern about soil moisture. And so these experts are tailoring their online offering to a particular audience. So you need to understand that audience, whichever factor of online networking you're dealing with, whether it be on farm all the way through to something else in a targeted fashion. So let's understand their needs. Importantly, know their connectivity or bandwidth. And I'll give you an example later on in the presentation where we talk about just a quick way to survey a target audience. Understand hardware, can they access and use your tools, and is there upskilling for yourself or others in the use of online tools. Time your interactions. This is things that relate to time of day, month, season, etc. And this is a key message that I was given a number of years ago by a really influential colleague actually. Just think about when you contact people. So if you've got a critical network, it really should be weekly. If you're trying to maintain a working relationship, at least monthly. If you're maintaining a relationship with that network of people, quarterly as a minimum. And in any interaction, what we've learned in Extension Oz is we need some sort of face-to-face engagement, at least annually, to maintain and build on relationships, get things right. And the last point there is you've got to be social, so you've got to respond in a timely manner. If you're going to network with people, you have to give to the network before you can get back from the network. And just on that face-to-face, and this is a key learning that we have learned in our programs, is that we're not trying to and we cannot replace face-to-face. So if it's detailed or contentious or critical, or there's new relationships that are really important, or it just looks like it needs some sort of face-to-face engagement, well, it really does. So then we would use our online networking tools and opportunities to complement that. We would build on the face-to-face. And we'll explain more about that as we go today. So in this connectivity hardware and software, the key point we would make is seek help. So if you don't understand it, you're unsure, and you've got something you're really trying to work with online, get some help around that. And then when you're working with others that you're targeting, from small groups to large, help them. So set it up so that we get this digital literacy, this online capability effective and right. So know your connectivity hardware and software. We use a suite approach and would recommend that you do the same. And this will seem quite complex, but you can start very simply with one or two tools. And that's all about understanding your strategy, which Becky's going to speak about, the outcome you're trying to achieve, and then you marry it to the tools that are available. The ones we use, I'll quickly flick through them, are websites, different social media, e-newsletters, and we use some smart e-newsletter templates. We use webinars, such as we're doing today. We use YouTube, and we'll speak a bit about that. We make people available to our networks, so experts that they can contact directly, making that one-to-one degree of separation between end users and the people that have the research, have the knowledge. And we use a suite approach in terms of smart calendars, podcasts, collaboration spaces. We have ratings and pop-ups. We're starting to do stuff in augmented and virtual reality, and we do use customized analytics to monitor as we go. Last key point, or second last key point, cameras on. So I'm just going to make an emphasis about that, but the cameras on component, and you'll see now we're all getting a bit tired of Zoom fatigue if we've done a lot of it, and people are no longer switching their cameras on. But if you're working in a team, you really want solid outcomes, then the difference between hearing something and seeing something and then being face-to-face, that camera on makes such a difference in terms of being able to connect with people and learn something about people. So when it's important, we say cameras on. And that's a resource that we'll point you towards. It's a great YouTube clip on taking great video with your phone, because using short videos, 1, 2 or 3 minute videos, which are very easy to take once you have got you've practiced that and it's not difficult, is a great way of conveying information quickly and efficiently online. Just some comments on the farm before we go and speak about strategies overall. So on farm, we're talking about matching needs. So in our situation, we have we have a farm, we have a horse training business, and we have our agricultural consulting business. We have 2 full-time employees and 4 casual part-time employees, and we have 3 essential contractors, subcontractors that are used very frequently as part of our business or businesses. We use Facebook and Messenger to groups to communicate, so private groups for our staff, etc., our businesses, and we use Messenger groups to communicate on a daily basis. We use Google Drive, and this is just an example of what any business can do. So some sort of cloud-based server that you can store information where people can access it. So on Google Drive, you know, there's position descriptions, timesheets, OH&S stuff, work plans, and files about particular aspects of what we do, where everyone can access them from wherever they are at any time. So some sort of online server situation. YouTube, so we use private YouTube clips mainly for training, and then we use public YouTube clips to send information to clients. We use online software for our cash books, and so invoicing and pay runs, etc., is all done online, and it's all linked directly so that people are emailed. You know, staff or clients are emailed directly. I use Reminder a lot. So if I'm out and about doing different things and something pops in my head, or if I'm, you know, in the middle of the night, that bugbear where stuff starts filling your mind, I just pop everything into reminders, and that then links to everything as well. So I have my reminders on every device then, and I check through those daily and tick them off. and I dictate to notes on my phone, and then that notes synchronizes to every other device and through to the Google Drive, so that if I'm out and about, I might see something, you know, a broken fence or a weed, or I've gone to do a farm visit and I'm talking to a client, I'll take my notes in Notes, and then that'll link through to everything. We use iCloud, so all our devices and everything is synced through to iCloud, and we use text and email. So every time we say something, we make sure that we follow up with a text or an email. And because everything is synced on iCloud and then through to Google Drive, everything's coordinated. So whatever system is going to work for you, whether you have just the two of you in a family or you have 4 or 5 employees, some sort of online networking system is and will be a game changer. And speaking about game changers, I'll pass across now to Becky, who will actually talk about the way that you can develop your own strategy in this field of online networking. Thanks, Becky.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name's Becky Barker. I lead the strategy and communications for the Victorian Rural Women's Network. I'm hoping you can all see my presentation now. If you've got any questions, please do just pop them in the chat box and we can maybe address them a bit later. So I lead as I said, the strategy communications for Victoria.
Sorry, Becky, at the moment you're not sharing, so I'll just make sure that you do.
Okay.
So,
I think
yes,
I've just...
You're sharing now. Perfect, Becky.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So the Victorian Rural Women's Network, I'll just tell you a little bit about it first. The purpose of the presentation will tell you a bit about the network and also take you through a digital marketing strategy that I've put together for the network following a digital marketing course that I did a couple of months ago. The course was to optimize digital networking and engagement strategies, and also to help optimize all digital campaigns that we're running through the network. So the Victorian Rural Women's Network was re-established back in 2017 by the then Minister for Agriculture, Jala Pulford, and it exists to inspire, connect, resource and empower Victoria's rural and regional women. We operate through 3 channels of work, which is our annual events, a big leadership and mentoring program that we run, which is actually currently open for Victorian-based rural women connected to agriculture, and also through our communication. So I've been working for quite some time now with Gavin and Dennis on the Extensionals platform. We have been developing that over the last 2.5 years. I've been with the network. We have a website, we have a Facebook page and a Twitter page. We do an annual magazine and we also do quarterly newsletters. So just going back to the course that I attended, the topics that it covered were digital marketing tactics, frameworks and strategies to reach your audience and network, website optimization and social media. The purpose of this particular presentation is obviously to show you the importance of having a very structured and tailored approach which can be measured to maximize your success with regards to reaching your audience. So I'm hoping at the end of this presentation you'll be able to take away some really useful tips and tricks and even some templates that you can use. So Gavin's going to distribute like a toolkit that you'll be able to use, so it's very practical to be able to build your own successful digital marketing strategies, just depending on your audiences. Obviously, you'll all have very different audiences, so some of the things that I'll take you through with my strategy may not work so well for your audiences, but I just hope that you can take away a few things from what I've done. And this may also feel quite sort of complicated, this particular strategy. So, you know, maybe you could just focus on one element of it in your own if you're just starting out. So I'm going to start off by just talking a little bit about the network. So the network's a free networking and advocacy group that's run through Agriculture Victoria under the Department of Jobs, Precincts and Regions. It connects rural and regional Victorian women through regular communications events and our leadership program, and inspires, it's actually more than 20,000 website users now through real stories of rural women featured on our website and through our quarterly newsletters and communications. And we resource rural women through information, knowledge sharing, mentoring, and leadership training, so they can thrive, lead, and succeed in their businesses and their communities. And it also offers a voice for them in government decision making. Now, when you're thinking about putting together your own particular campaign, the first things you really need to think about, obviously, are your audience. So you need to do some work to work out who your audience is, but also your objectives. So the first thing we learned through this digital marketing course was the importance of setting the importance of objective first marketing. So that basically involves setting your objective, which needs to be very clear and timely, and just a short objective. So for this particular purpose, mine was increasing new traffic to our website by 15% between June and December 2020. So it's really important to put like an end date on it. Then you need to define your KPIs, how you're going to measure your success. And then you need to think about the different tactics that you're going to use throughout your campaign. So that might be through, for example, Facebook advertising, or it could be through optimizing your website, or just maybe even just starting up an email marketing campaign. And then obviously at the end of any campaign, you need to make sure that you can measure your outcomes. So this little exercise here called the Gaddy pitch basically takes you through your why. So most people try and sell to an audience or try and buy in their loyalty through what they do and how they do it, rather than the why. So this helps you really drill down into what your why is. So for the Victorian Rural Women's Network, it's women living in rural and regional Victoria. They often feel disconnected and isolated. They have less access to upskilling opportunities than city-based women. And I'm gonna make a confession here. These are probably the wrong way around. So I'm going to go on to, well, what we do is the Victorian Rural Women's Network delivers regular communications and events, a leadership program which enables more than 40 rural women to access funded places. And that helps them feel increased confidence to lead and succeed. But the actual why of the network is that we connect, inspire, resource, and empower Victorian rural women so they can feel confidence to step up and lead. But you can just use this little exercise with your own audiences. The next really important thing that we did quite some time ago when I first started on the network was we really unpacked who our audience was by doing audience personas. This is quite an easy thing to do. You can just literally Google audience personas and you'll get like a template. But this is just an example of what how you can do one. So this is meet Sarah. She's a farmer and accountant. She's 31. It sort of drills down into her job description, her financial institution, her daily activities. And then you can also unpack things like her challenges, goals, needs, and influences. So you become really, really knowledgeable about who your audience is. With the Victorian Rural Women's Network, we actually went into very much more detail because the network doesn't just attract agricultural women. We were trying to broaden the scope of the network and encourage more women from outside of the agricultural space to grow the network. So we split ours into two. We've got our agricultural women on one side and our rural women. So that's obviously the young farmers, new farmers, generational farmers in the agricultural space, and then entrepreneurs and women in services, service professionals, and return to work women. Obviously, these kinds of things need to be revisited on and off because, for example, at the beginning of this year, we've had some pretty awful emergencies and crises happening. So you do need to keep reviewing them just to check that your audience wants and needs haven't changed. Obviously, in the ag space, they will have changed quite dramatically over the last few months. Now, this little graphic I just find so useful. Basically, it takes you through the customer journey. And that customer journey is how you convert somebody from just maybe having a look at your website or looking at a Facebook post to actually engaging with you, buying into what you're doing. So it might not be what you're selling. It might be, for example, information that you're giving out. So it could be for the government, their campaigns around masks, how you get people to actually buy into that and keep going with that messaging and actually do what you want them to do. So this is showing the customer journey from the start, just the awareness through to consideration, conversion, and loyalty, and the different activities and communications that you can do at the different stages of buy-in. So if you're just at the awareness journey, you might be looking at doing something like a paid Facebook campaign, or offline you could do some radio ads or just some word of mouth promotion about what you're trying to sell or get people to buy into. For consideration, you'd probably be looking more around emails and optimizing your website. Excuse me, for conversion, you'll be looking at more things like delivery, pickup, marketplace, and then it brings you into loyalty, where you can do things like put a chatbot on your website, which starts to build more of a two-way conversation rather than a broadcast, and then maybe a loyalty program or referrals, testimonials, that kind of thing. So when you're starting out, this business model canvas is really useful because it separates your campaign into the sections where you can actually physically look at the different channels you're going to use to build your campaign, the stakeholders you're going to be contacting, the resourcing you might need, your cost, your budget, all of those things. So the different channels you can use, and Gavin's touched on those. So obviously there's websites, social media, Facebook, email, direct email marketing campaigns. With email marketing campaigns, you can use platforms like Campaign Monitor or MailChimp, which are quite intuitive and easy to use. Or you could maybe do some, hard copy, flyers, magazines, that kind of thing. The one thing I haven't discussed on this page is the value proposition, and that was something that we did right at the beginning of the network. We had a reference group of 18 rural women who came together, and we consulted them on what they felt the direction of and the objectives of the network should be, and we worked together to decide on our particular value proposition, which is that Victorian rural women are stronger through connection. So for this particular marketing objective, I used quite a multi-layered approach, and this is what marketing experts would basically promote, that you try and use a combination of 3 different types of media, which is paid, owned, and earned media. So paid media would be like, for example, something like a Facebook campaign. Owned media is like a website, your own website, is any kind of channel that you actually own, our Facebook page, for example, or Twitter. And earned media is things that basically leads that you get or conversions that you get through loyalty campaigns or referrals, that kind of thing. So for this campaign, to reach my objective, which was based on SMART objectives as well. So you basically want your objectives to be specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and time-bound, which this one is: increase new traffic to website by 15% between June to December 2020. And then I decided to achieve this objective, I was going to do a paid social campaign. So I put, say, $300 on Facebook ads, encouraging people to subscribe to the network. And then the second tactic was search engine optimization. So that's basically optimizing your website or your blog stories to get to the top of Google rankings. And my third tactic is optimizing our website. So with regards to the website optimization, it's things like making sure that your all of your really important information is in the top third of your website, that all of your website is optimized for mobile phone, because that's generally what people tend to use most to access information at the moment. And also making sure you're using very clear and attractive imagery. There's basically quite a funny little acronym they told us about, which is CRAP, which is around contrast, relevant imagery, adjustment, and perception. So that basically sort of gives you the general idea of how to sort of build an attractive website that will keep bringing people back time and time again. So the Facebook ad campaign, this is something that you can do, obviously, if you've got a Facebook page, and to encourage to make your campaign even more targeted, you can do something called A/B testing. which is where you might make one social media tile up with one image and another up with another image. One might have a woman on, one might have men on it. And then you just put out your social media tile to your audience, and you see which one performs better. And you can see that through Facebook Insights, and you can also track things through your website on Google Analytics. So if you're doing a Facebook campaign, the must-haves that you really need to think about are you need to have a landing page where you can capture all of your data. Mobile, thinking always mobile first, so that whatever you put on your website, it can be viewed very easily on your mobile phone. You can have enticing captions, captivating imagery, and a clear call to action. For measuring a Facebook ad campaign, you can measure it through things like engagement rate, reach, cost per click, cost per acquisition if you're selling something, and your conversion rates. And you can use certain tools of the trade like Facebook Insights and Google Analytics that will give you the numbers after your campaign. My second tactic, search engine optimization. This one, for the must-haves for a successful search engine optimization, would be having a good landing page, captivating imagery, clear call to action, long tail keywords. Now, keywords is something that they're words that you embed into your social media or your website, which basically can help to people to find your information more quickly or more intuitively, and it also can help bring you to the top of Google rankings. For example, and you need to really get inside your audience's mind with something like this. So somebody who might be interested in joining a Rural Women's Network might type in something like farming women, or they probably wouldn't write rural women. So you just got to think outside the square a bit with things like that. UTM codes are quite useful as well. So they're like a little code that gets embedded into your social media tile, for example, and it can trace back where your customer has come from. So, you know, we might realize that someone's come from, say, the National Centre for Farmer Health website and then come over to us. Measuring the search engine optimization can be done through engagement rates, click-through rates, conversion rates, bounce rates, and impressions. It's important to note that if your bounce rate's quite high, it doesn't necessarily mean that your page isn't good. It might just be that somebody's going there and they're seeing the information and getting what they need and then moving on. So you just have to be careful with that number. And then tracking the success of search engine optimization would be done through something called Campaign Builder, Facebook Ad Manager, Google Trends, Facebook Insights, and Google Analytics. Some of this might sound a bit like gobbledygook, but I'll be sending out a toolkit later, which will give you links to all of these things, and you can find out a little bit more about them. Now, website optimization, we've been working really closely with Gavin and Dennis over the last 2.5 years, and I'm really pleased to say that in the last 2.5 years, we've managed to build our website traffic to about 20,000 users, and we've had about 58,000 page views. We have refreshed the website page quite regularly and tried to make it look innovative and modern and very intuitive, so the user experience is really good. Like I said, you need to be looking at things like at the top, you know, you want all of your really important information right at the top, including your value proposition. You might want to have, say, your subscriber button there if you're getting people to subscribe to something, or if you're selling something, a really engaging image of what you're selling right up the top there. So the must-haves for website optimization is things like having a good landing page, always thinking mobile first, making sure that you put meta descriptions on all your images and your stories. You need to make sure that things are consistent and minimal, because people tend to get a bit overwhelmed if everything's quite jumbled and busy. You can do things like pop-ups. So that's been quite useful for us recently, obviously, when we've had very, very changing times and we need to have, we need to be explaining to people that, you know, restrictions have changed during coronavirus. And so that's really helped keep our homepage up to date. And the way that you can measure how things are going on your websites by things like reach. So we have all of with our quarterly newsletter, we have all our stories on our homepage. So you can click through and see how many people have been opening each story. And then things like bounce rates, the amount of time people spend on pages, and And then the other tools that you can use for this are things like SEO Site Checkup, which does like a sort of thorough audit of how you're tracking with regards to search engine optimization, and Google Analytics, which is really useful. You can drill down to things like gender, what type of device somebody might be coming to your website on, and it really helps you to tailor and tweak your strategies. This is just a clever little algorithm that you can use to measure the return on your investment when you're doing a Facebook campaign. And then I'll just wrap up by talking a bit about what this work and what I really learned from doing on the digital marketing course for our particular network and where we might go next. So for us, we would like to be doing more A/B testing. It's not something that we've done a lot of, and I think that would really help us to work out what our audience really wants. I want to try and build up more of a two-way conversation rather than a broadcast of like, just posting something and then just leaving it and not actually engaging in comments that happen afterwards. So we need to sort of just keep visiting those platforms regularly, making sure that we're conversing with people. We'd like to overhaul our email marketing, improve the targeting out of our campaigns through some of the things I've discussed today, and use the use of imagery that's portrays smart and innovative women, because obviously that's the message that we're constantly trying to put across. With our owned media, we'd like to do more videos. So I can give you an example of what we did recently. We launched our leadership campaign and we did a video of a lady who was down on a farm in Phillip Island, which, as you can imagine, was quite interesting during coronavirus times, but we managed to do it. And that video has had over 22,000 views in about 2 weeks with the help of a little bit of a Facebook campaign. Normally that would reach, as an organic post, around 4,000. With earned media, I'll be looking at doing things better SEO. It's not really something, again, we've explored. It's quite time consuming. So you do need to think about the resourcing that you might need to do something like that. Subscriber testimonials, stakeholders sharing their stories through our communications, a better email list management. We find that's always quite tricky because, it's always changing. And then personalization and targeting to specific audiences. So thanks very much for listening to my presentation. I hope that you feel you have learned something from it. I'm more than happy to talk to you about it. If you've got any questions, just put them in the chat box and we can talk about them later. And Gavin will, hopefully after the webinar, we'll send out the toolkit and a link to a presentation from someone called Simon Sinek about the why, which helps you work out what your true value proposition is. So thanks very much. I'll hand back over to Gavin.
Thanks very much, Becky. So just a bit of context about what you've heard there. Obviously, there's quite a lot of detail about a planning approach that we've been utilising with community practice, particularly with Becky and the work that she's done on the course and then implementing it. So there's quite a lot of detail there. We understand that, but it's really about you needing to plan. So that's the message. So whether it's a simple network you're doing or it's a complex one like Becky's, you've got to have the planning approach. So pick the eyes out of what Becky's presented with you there. I'll just introduce Nikki now. So actually, in the interest of time, I'll let Nikki introduce herself and her network as she goes. So this is an example of what things are like applied in a social media context. So networking through social media. Thank you, Nikki.
Thanks, Gavin. Hi, everyone. I know it's been quite a long session, so hopefully I'll be a bit brief. I'll be short and sharp and you'll get something out of what I'm talking about. Gavin, just checking everyone can see my screen. Have I shared that correctly? Oh no, there. No, so hopefully you can see the Food Innovation Network. Is that right, Gavin?
Yeah.
Or Becky? Thanks, Becky. Okay, well, so I am currently managing the Victorian Food Innovation Network, which you can see on your screen there. And the purpose of the network is to link what we call food SMEs or food businesses. We've called them, businesses between 19 and 199 staff. So in that sort of what we call mid-range, to what we call R&D service providers. So that might be state government, CSIRO, universities, the Monash Food Innovation Network, RMIT, La Trobe. All the major universities have experts that sit in our sector and work in that post-farm gate area. And previous research done at a national level identified that there was a breakdown between taking R&D and turning it into commercial outcomes for business. So that was really the purpose of the network, so it's basically a virtual network, and it's just me. I'm working on it 0.6 of my time, where I was pre-COVID. I'm now working less on it because we've sort of been hijacked by COVID, as I'm sure a lot of people have. And so what we have is we have a website, we have a number of assets. We've got a website, we've got social media, and we've got a newsletter, much like Gavin described and Becky showed you in her platform as well. So this is our current website at the moment, which was revised for the Global Table Conference, which we had in September last year prior to COVID, if people can remember back that far. And we host, so you can click on basically any of these tabs and you'll see that this is a Hospitalpreneurs is a podcast that's updated weekly that's aimed at the food sector. And then we've got some of our registered, what we call registered service providers or our R&D experts. And then we've got links back into funding that's available through government targeted at our target audience. At the moment, we have about between 1,500 and 1,600 members of the network. And to be a member, you just basically have to subscribe to the network. So anyone here today that would be interested in being involved, we'd love to have you on board. And we promote lots of things. We promote events that are happening internally within the department that might be relevant to our sector, as well as events that are happening externally. And most of that at the moment, as you know, is all online. And we provide an Ask an Expert function, which is these R&D service providers I was talking about. So if I take you to that page, you can see we have a profile available to the public now. Anyone can access this, that if you've got a particular problem in your business that you'd like to resolve, you can search yourself through our network here or our R&D service providers, or you can actually ask a question through our website, which comes to me, and I triage it out to the network and help you broker or identify someone that might be able to help you with that problem, a business expert. So I quite often get questions posted to me through this, and that comes directly to an inbox that I manage. And then I put it out to the experts and they respond if they're interested. So to complement this offer, we have run in the past, and it's currently not open, the Boost Your Business Food Innovation Voucher Program. And we offer 2 types of vouchers, so I'll just show you that. So we have up to $10,000 that we make available to businesses to explore opportunities that they mightn't have time to do themselves, and they can pay someone else to do that. It might be to look at how to reduce a waste stream in their food business, such as carrot pulp or some sort of other food waste stream that they've identified, like in tofu you get a waste stream called okara, and looking at ways they can turn it into a product and therefore create some value out of that waste stream. So that's one example. And then the other voucher is up to $50,000 matching funding dollar for dollar for businesses to then implement that project that they might have identified. So you can have up to 2 vouchers. So that's worked really well for us in complementing our service offer around what the network has to offer. So as well as having our resource page, similar to what Becky was talking about, we provide case studies that demonstrate some of the successes that have come out of some of the work that we've funded, and businesses can scroll through those and see what sort of things we've done and get some ideas, because it's all about trying to stimulate people to think about slightly outside the box and more broadly in terms of what their business opportunities might be. But to complement that, we've used LinkedIn as our strategy. So we approached our internal comms people to get approval to have a LinkedIn account, and I manage that as well. And that's worked, that started from scratch, and the goal was to get to 500 LinkedIn followers, because basically LinkedIn is a really passive way to get engagement. For people to go to our website, which they do, takes a lot more effort than to say, have a post come up through their feed in their LinkedIn. Say, you know, people might be, you know, sitting at their desk or, you know, having a break from work or on the train when we actually did commute to work. And they can see, they can just get updates about things that are relevant to them that might be attractive, that then can push them back to the website or get them to connect to some of the other things that are going on in the sector. At the moment, it's been very COVID focused because, you know, as you know, there's not a lot else going on in terms of events and activities. So I have been mainly concentrating on trying to push those messages out. But it is also pushing stuff out to the sector as opposed to a two-way conversation. We do get some engagement. You can actually measure through the analytics visitors and what sort of success you're having and whether they're engaging online or desktop, and we get a mixture of both. And you can also see how your updates are resonating. So you can get an idea of what posts people have read and what posts have created the greatest level of engagement, which is quite useful. And just recently, LinkedIn has added the ability to actually see who's following you. So I found this really interesting because we attract a different audience to our LinkedIn page than we would to, say, the website. And we also have a Facebook page, which is just here. And that attracts a whole different audience. Again, I don't actually have a budget to advertise. So most of the work that we do on Facebook, it's a bit more organic because I haven't been, I don't have a budget to advertise to boost posts, but I have actually paid for the odd one myself just to get a few messages out there. And we find we get a very different target audience on Facebook to what we do on LinkedIn. And the other thing I should mention just about LinkedIn, I find that because LinkedIn is essentially about the individual, so it's the fact that I'm linked, that LinkedIn profile is actually linked to my profile, which I've just got up there. So I find that it works better because people don't come so much to LinkedIn to engage with a business. They might follow it, but they are more interested in engaging with other people. So I think that I try and manage the LinkedIn site as if I was talking to someone, as if I was, you know, had a segment of one. So the idea is it sort of extends that brand and has that conversational tone. The other thing we do is we use Campaign Monitor, which is run out of a department, to send out our newsletter. And I've just got an example of our quarterly newsletter. And I also developed that. I'm just about to send out the next one. And that's designed to sort of come into someone's inbox and then attract, you know, push them to either the website or to try and engage a bit more with the network. And so that supports our sort of broad media campaign. And I just wanted to show you the work that Becky was talking about, the avatars she has. So this is what we developed very early on when this started, when we started the Food Innovation Network, which is basically the descriptor of our 3 segments that sits behind the work that we do. And we're really targeting that growth-oriented segment there in the middle. So trying to understand them has been really important to our engagement, I think, for the network. But I mean, I think there's always so much more that we can do because I feel a little bit isolated. I don't know if you feel like that at the moment, but particularly working from home, you know, I'm sitting in my bedroom. I'm not really, there isn't the same level of opportunity to engage with the sector that I would like normally to have. So we have to keep working out ways to sort of build that dialogue and create that dialogue. And that's easy to do with our registered service providers, but more difficult to do with our network more broadly. And we're always looking for new ideas and ways to do that. Yeah, so I think that pretty much covers what I wanted to say. Thanks, Gavin.
Thank you so much, Nikki. So that gives everyone some practical examples of just that agility. So again, Nikki and Becky are dealing with very complex target audiences. So, you know, their approach is very thorough and very targeted and uses a variety of streams. So whether you're on farm or whether you are, you know, you're going to run quite a complex online network, they're all the same sort of, I guess, approaches and strategies that we're using. So just by way of summary, I suppose, on what we've covered today. We've covered a bit, but no matter what you're doing in the online space, just think about the relationships, those that you're trying to develop that relationship with. Where possible, have cameras on if you're doing one-to-one or group chats. Use short video, and we're going to give you that video link that QDPI in New South Wales kindly produced, and it's a fantastic short instruction on how to do that. Build up your digital literacy and get help there or help others. Have that plan. We've talked to you about different approaches there and continuously improve that. Remember, it's a competitive advantage. So whether you are dealing with your own small workforce, your own family business, or whether you're dealing with quite a complex network that you're targeting, it is a competitive advantage if you do it well. Get that help, get a sweet approach, and include face-to-face when you need it. I'm just going to finish off with a quick example, and this is how you might review your own target audience. And this is also a key point that the millennials are already there. They're already networking. So this is actually our 18-year-old son who's mad keen on farming. He said that all his life. I think his first word was tractor, but he's definitely convinced us that he's definitely wants to do that. But so if I said to him, which I did, so I said to him, well, what do you do online? I haven't had this conversation with you before, but I did the same thing as if he was a target audience. So what do you do online in ag? You can do that with any client or with your people. I'll also just stick on our poll now and allow people to give their feedback as we go and finish off. So enjoy researching, learning socially and networking with people in ag. When I asked, okay, so how do you network? Using Snapchat, 5 to 10 people daily to weekly. They're 18 to 25 years old. They work in farming business or they're farmers. Are they networking the same way as you? Yeah, they are. What about wider networks? Yeah, less often, but a whole range of people. And they're sort of 18 to 50 plus, so everyone working in farming. What do you use to communicate? So outside of Snapchat, in this case, it's Facebook groups and messaging. How often? Quite often, one-to-one. But Facebook groups, and this is the same with lots of other areas in agriculture, is closed Facebook groups or public Facebook groups are incredibly popular. And those are the ones that Will is using. And then Instagram, lots of farms, farming, different setups, different machinery. So just by asking, you can get in a 10-minute conversation, a lot of information about what your network's doing online. And just remember, like when I was a kid, this was a smartphone. So it's continually evolving. There's lots of opportunities. With that, I'm going to pass across to Rachel to finish off the webinar. We're going to leave the webinar open at the end to enable discussion and ongoing questions. And we're going to send each of you, because it's such a broad sort of church, I suppose, this whole online space, we're going to send out some additional information that you can use either in your own little sector or in quite a complex environment. Thank you, Rachel.
Thanks, Gavin, and apologies, we're running a little behind time. My name is Rachel Jackson. I work in Australia support team. And I just want to bring your attention to technology audit for on-farm connectivity if anyone might be interested or anyone has clients who might be interested in participating. One of our colleagues, Andy Clark, is coordinating it. Send out more details after that. But basically an opportunity for people to go through a list of questions and understand some of the barriers they may have on farm are having great connectivity.
Rachel, your audio is, sorry to interrupt, Rachel, your audio is quite bad. So Rachel's in a stage 4 lockdown with all her kids online going to school. So that's the challenges of this environment. So at the moment, they're obviously flat out at school.
Yep.
Rachel, I might quickly explain for you what you're covering.
Go for it.
So this is a great opportunity for people that would like an audit. Agriculture Victoria are offering these tech audits to farm businesses so that they can review their technology on farm and then look at ways that it can be enhanced and innovated. So those are the contact details there, and we will share those out with you. Just to remember, if you do want to stay online, we will be happy to chat with you and ask questions as we go. Apologies for being sort of 5 minutes over. The other key offering that Rachel's program is doing, and it closes on August 28th, is farm business decision making, or grants that support opportunities on farm. So you can use them for an infrastructure investment or activities to do with farm business decision making, like improving mobile phone connectivity, for instance, if people are having challenges there. Soil moisture probes, as an example, are also permissible infrastructure. But there's some links there, and again, we will send these contacts out. And reminder again, you'll have to get it in by the 28th of August, but it's a great opportunity and a great support for businesses that need support in this space. And the last point is that this webinar series, which is the last one of, was funded by the Victorian Drought Support and Recovery Strategy Project. And those are the contact details there. And again, we'll provide more information on that as we go.